Can you beat Mario Odyssey without collecting a single coin? There are a ridiculous amount of things that give you a coin, such as bushes, blocks, enemies, coins, posters, garbage, random platforms, and so many other things. So I'm gonna have to be careful every step of the way. The only rule for this challenge is that the 2 coin counters in the top left of the screen have to remain at 0. And if I ever mess up, I have to reload the save, something I did over 100 times. The game starts in Cap Kingdom, and there thankfully aren't too many coins. At least in the first section. After picking up Cappy, I entered Top Hat Tower and started seeing so many coins. I had to jump on the very edges of platforms, but I made it out without any resets. I avoided this coin block in my path and then hopped into the first boss, Topper. It's normally a very easy fight, but after jumping on his head, he drops a ring of coins which you had to avoid. I was thankfully able to dive out of the way and wait for them to despawn before I finished him off. Next up is Cascade, and like the idiot that I am, I rushed to the dino and brought him to the bounce pad, breaking open the rocks above it and gaining 3 coins. So I reloaded the save and went to the intended route. It was a little scary as some of these blocks give out coins, but I remember correctly and headed into the boss fight. Since I popped out of the chain chomp miles away from the coins, I easily maintained my distance and headed on over to Sand Kingdom. Sand Kingdom, if you didn't know, has the most coins out of any kingdom. Just walking around in the ruins was ridiculous. After collecting some miscellaneous moons, I went with a bullet bill to pick up this one and then flew back around. I crashed into a wall and randomly picked up some invisible coins that were revealed. Why are these here? My first big step in this kingdom was to try and get the first story moon. The first story moon in this kingdom is on top of this tower, and my first couple of attempts weren't great. I hit a cactus on my way in, and then I jumped straight into a group of coins. On my next attempt, I managed to get past the coins, but still found 2 groups of them on the stairs up to the moon. So this moon and everything behind it is impossible, so I'll have to seek moons elsewhere. In the underground cave section, I first had to parkour up this block to skip the 3 coins in the back. I then climbed up the next section of blocks and found an invisible coin. I was a little worried that all the other pillars would have this and I wouldn't be able to collect the moon, but nope, no other pillars have this. So why add it? Why? I started the coins with disgust in the Sphinx's vault before ramming into a spare tire and accidentally collecting a coin. It was annoying to have to reload and come all the way out here again, but I quickly got 2 more moons and flew over to Lake Kingdom. Since there's only a requirement of 8 moons to leave, I quickly gathered 5 and decided on fighting Rango. I figured he's an easy boss and an easy multi-moon, but what I didn't consider was how annoying it would be to get to him. These yellow Goombas are very fragile and incredibly easy to kill, so I had to lure them away from the flower and then jump into it. I avoided some rings of coins in the air that I failed to see from the ground before getting to the checkpoint and saving. After that, Rango was incredibly easy and I had enough moons to make my way to Wooded. The maze right before the first story moon is filled with gray blocks. I was worried that they would give me coins, but fortunately none of the blocks I picked had anything in them. I went up to get the secret moon and somehow accidentally uncaptured and ground pounded, killing my uproot. This lost me several moons of progress, as I hadn't saved in a couple of minutes, so I just sat and reflected for a while. But I came back, ran right under someone's legs, and got to a checkpoint. A moon was blocked by this giant piranha plant, but the coins spread super slowly, so they're very easy to avoid. Topper was as easy as ever, and I mopped up 3 more moons to escape to Cloud Kingdom, where there are a grand total of 0 coins. Hearts can spawn from Bowser's purple hats, but they only spawn if you can use them, so you'll never get the 5 coin bonus from not needing them. It's literally impossible to mess up. Lost Kingdom makes up for Cloud by being chock full of coins. Everywhere you look is another group of coins, whether visible or not. As I went to climb up to the top for some free moons, I got to the wall jumping section. Never mind. Thankfully, there are plenty more moons to grab, and this isn't required. Captain Toad was a little tricky to figure out because this coin was blocking the intended Wiggler strategy from working. Instead, I had to perform this precise dive to reach him. He tempted me with his fat stacks of gold, but I left the grand larceny for another man. Acquiring this one in the block required precise movement of the hat-stealing enemies to only blow up the corner block, as all the surrounding ones have coins in them. After collecting 10 moons, it's time to face Night Metro and the first actually hard boss in the game, Mecha Wiggler. But first is an even harder section. the inside of the tower. Literally everything in this thing gives you a coin, the most annoying of which are these yellow Goombas again. If I jump, then I kill them, but if I do nothing, then they push me off the platform. I basically just had to wait for the time when only one of them made it and then damage tank to the top. After that, I went on the route to the secret moon where there were significantly fewer coins and enemies. Now it's time for the boss fight. Here's my first attempt. Did you catch it? When I hit the final orb, it killed the second tank and decided to give that money to me. So I had to immediately capture one of the tanks at the beginning of the fight and then go capture the other one. This allows the first one to unload after a certain amount of time and allows us to get through without a coin. Besides that, Metro doesn't have many coins. Most of the coins and enemies are located in sub-areas, which I avoided because I could. There were plenty of moons to get me through the kingdom. I made sure to say no to the festival and then traveled over to Snow Kingdom. I upload at least once a week, so if you like this video, then you should subscribe so you never miss another upload. After arriving, I went straight into Shiveria and got all 10 moons in there. There was some somewhat tricky platforming throughout the 4 sub-areas, and I did have to reset a couple of times. But I never ran into any major roadblocks and headed on over to Seaside Kingdom where the fun began. I got some random moons along with the 4 story moons, bringing my total up to 7. This activated the boss fight, which would bring me up to the 10 I needed to leave the kingdom. But I started to run into some issues. Since you fight in a Gushin, you shoot out a deadly trail behind you, and I quickly killed another Gushin by accident, giving me a coin. This problem isn't too hard to solve, as I just need to fly into the air and then occasionally come back down to refill on water. But a problem I couldn't solve was the boss himself. After damaging him, he turns into a Beyblade and starts baby raging around the kingdom. This isn't great for the Gushin population, and at least one would always die. I tried several times, but eventually I just gave up. I was worried that the boss would randomly kill something while I was collecting moons, so I went into some sub-areas instead to collect the 3 moons I needed and then dipped to Lunch Kingdom. Spirit was as easy as ever, and I want to talk quickly about this sub-area. It doesn't have any coins and only a couple of piranha plants, but it's just hard in general. I don't think I've ever been able to do this without dying or at least taking damage, but this time I played out of my mind. I never got hit and avoided all the piranha plants, giving me 2 moons. Besides that, there's not much else to talk about. I climbed the mountain and put the meat in the soup to prepare to face the dragon. This is usually a rough spot in Mario Odyssey challenges, but thankfully the boss doesn't drop coins. I was incredibly scared the first time I damaged him, because after you remove one of the gates, a little enemy spawns, and I was worried that the dragon would kill them and give me coins. But it didn't do that for whatever reason, and I am forever thankful. The Pokio section was so annoying and took a ton of resets. But the real highlight is the bosses. Topper and Harriet didn't pose any threat, but the mech was brutal. It has the same problem as the Mecha Wiggler in that it kills enemies when it gets damaged. The mech constantly spawns Pokios, meaning that I constantly have to uncapture and wait for them to despawn before I can do anything. The despawn timer is ridiculously long, and I was often scared that the mech would wake back up before I had time to damage it. After 2 hits, it spawned snakes, which thankfully never gave coins, but they still make hitting the bombs a lot more annoying and difficult, which in turn makes more Pokio spawn and makes me way more annoyed. Eventually, I launched the Brutals into space and then decided to follow suit in his stylish tuxedo. I had some fun bouncing around in the low gravity before deciding that today was the day I was going to learn Moon Cave Skip. I've never done it, but it had to be faster and easier than the gauntlet in that Moon Cave. I googled a tutorial and it took a couple of minutes of trying before I pulled it off and leapt into the chapel. After an entire game of ruthless platforming and dangerous boss fights to avoid coins, you can finally rest easy. Like the Cloud fight, there aren't any coins, and you could easily smack Bowser in the face without getting a penny richer. The escape sequence follows suit, and after around 4 hours, I beat Super Mario Odyssey without collecting a single coin. If you enjoyed the video, then consider liking and subscribing. I upload at least once a week, and you don't want to miss it. Comment any video ideas you have down below, and have a great day.